say, unless you, Scott, are.
No, I am not well versed in the world of ghost fish. So
Okay, all right. Well, I will go ahead and jump in here. It's been interesting how we did the webinar a few sessions ago on boundaries, and I've kind of thought like, there seemed to be a lot that came up from that, and we've had some response afterwards where people were saying that really that taught them a lot, and so that's fantastic. That always makes me excited because I want to obviously teach really good things that help you guys change your lives. So I started thinking about it, and I keep kind of racking my brain, like, well, what else could I teach on boundaries? Um, and one of the things that really just kind of popped into my head, what would it take for us to reframe boundaries? That we actually start to think of boundaries as a way to let people into our lives. And ultimately, it's a way to let healthy people, safe people into our lives. And so rather than this thought of, in a way, keeping uh, unhealthy people out, it's important to realize that the primary goal, it really isn't even, I don't know, defensive, right? The boundaries aren't about creating a defense. It's about figuring out, if you will, how do I let the good, healthy people show up in my life? And how do I teach people around me what healthy looks and feels like to me? And when I go through boundaries, and I've said it before, and let's go at it again, boundaries have risk, boundaries have vulnerability. And in order to let people into my life, I have to have vulnerability. Brene Brown talks about the biggest barrier to empathy is toxic shame, is to have either a belief in ourselves. So this is internal shame versus external shame. Internal shame is the belief that I am unlovable or not enough or unworthy. External shame is my belief that others believe that I am unlovable or unworthy. So a lot of times our defensiveness that comes up with vulnerability is we are trying to prove to other people that we're lovable and we're worthy. And so sometimes when somebody gives us a boundary, our defensiveness goes up and we think, I can't believe that you believe that I am unlovable and that I am unworthy. How dare you give me a boundary that reinforces this faulty core belief that I have? That would be a healthy person, by the way, kind of. But the healthy person that realizes when you set a boundary, it triggers my external shame that I believe that you believe that I am unlovable. I hope that makes sense. And but boundaries are about vulnerability and about teaching other people. And so we need to recognize, when is our shame coming up? When is it that we're triggering the shame of the other person? And how do we stay vulnerable and share that opportunity with the other person? Hey, I want to teach you how to show up for me. I want to teach you how to be the partner or the friend or whatever that I need in my life. And so I'm going to share with you this boundary. Again, I don't love the word boundaries, but it's the one we use, so I'm going to use it. But how do I teach you this thing so that you know how to show up for me or be here for me? But it's vulnerable, it's risky, and it requires accountability on your part and the other person's part. You have to own that you believe that this is your need. You have to let them own whether or not they can do that for you. And then their reaction to you does not determine whether they love you or not. It determines whether what their understanding is. It determines what their emotional intelligence is, right? There's a lot that can be going on there, but I'm not giving a boundary trying to judge the other person as a test, the other person's safety or the other person's level of love for me. Boundaries can't be this test of whether the other person cares about me. People care about us all the time and they still hurt us. Hopefully it's unintentional, but even when people care about us unintentionally, we get hurt all the time. They don't mean to. It happens. It's part of having a vulnerable, close relationship. So I think that's it on the teaching piece. But Scott, I imagine you've got some really fun questions, possibly. You're on mute, Scott. I can't hear you.
That might be a good thing. Keep me muted. I have a couple of questions. Type your questions into the Q&A because I just have a couple today. So we're going to need audience participation. Yay. Ask questions about boundaries or anything to do with relationships, addiction recovery, relationship healing, whatnot. Because Matt is the king of all things relationship, at least in my opinion. And, my opinion counts for a lot. Okay, so you said right at the beginning, let's reframe boundaries as a way to let healthy, safe people into our lives. And I agree 100%. But can I have some unhealthy people in my life. Can I let them in safely? Can I still set boundaries that allow me to be in relationship with unhealthy people, but to let them in safely? And I'm sure a lot of our betrayed partners are thinking exactly that right now. Yeah. My partner's not safe. Can I still let him in or her?
Yeah, the concept is the same. Imagine if you meet somebody new, wherever you happen to meet people, if it's at work, if it's at a neighborhood get together, if it's at a church function or something, right? Anywhere you meet somebody, when you first meet somebody, we have some type of boundary, right? So when you first meet somebody, you don't ask them, for instance, hey, I'm wondering what your greatest fear and longings are in life, right? You ask them, oh, how long have you lived in the area? And how long have you been coming to the neighborhood get-togethers? I mean, I haven't seen you before. And, what do you do for work? And what do you like to do for fun, right? Like, we naturally have, if you will, social mechanisms that you don't usually hand a person that you don't know your address or your phone number and say, come on over anytime you'd like, right? There's automatic, if you will, most of us typically understand this construct that we don't just open up our heart or our homes to people without getting to know them to some degree or another, right? And that same thing applies, if you will, when you're rebuilding your relationship. So there is a betrayal in the relationship, and we, in some sense, have to start in smaller pieces. Here's what I'm comfortable doing or not doing. So it would not be abnormal for an affair to occur. Let's call it a sexual affair for sake of this purpose, and for the partner that's been betrayed, for them to say, oh, I'm pulling back, I'm not comfortable being sexual, I would like to have an STD test done, I would like to not be sexual for a little while until I can sort through the betrayal, or whatever that looks like. But I'm creating those, if you will, restrictions, or I'm moving back on the scale of vulnerability because I need to get grounded and figure out how to take care of myself before I start increasing vulnerability again. I need to rebuild trust. So you understand the concept from a social construct. You almost have to act like, wow, I've been betrayed, I've been hurt, I thought I knew you, I don't know you, at least the way that I thought I did. I'm going to take some steps back and slowly rebuild or quickly rebuild, just depending on what the needs are, right? And rebuild our comfort and our trust levels with each other. But I'm doing it because it's what I need, not because I'm trying to send a message of punishment or a message of, I need you to know I'm hurting. And so this is the way I'm going to send the message, right? That doesn't typically work well, to try and create distance in a relationship or to pull back in a relationship as a way of letting the other person know what you're thinking and feeling. We need to do that by vocalizing, processing through things, and testing what our needs are slowly over time to figure out if we can add to the relationship. Did that answer the question, Scott?
It did, and I'm actually typing a response to somebody. Somebody raised their hand. We don't do the hand raising thing here, but you can ask questions in the Q&A feature. So please just type it into the Q&A feature, and that will save me typing while Matt's talking. There we go. So yes, I have a couple more questions. So what happens when I clearly state a boundary and I state like a, you know, when you do this, it causes me to feel this way. And I don't like that feeling. So in the future, if you choose to behave that way, I will respond in this way. So I've set a nice, healthy, clear boundary that's about me and my behavior, not about controlling you. What happens when people misinterpret that?
Well, let's walk through that. Your response would be a healthy response in the regard that you are trying to let the other person know when this occurred. Okay, so I would encourage all of us to talk about the other person's behavior. When this behavior happened, I felt confused, I felt hurt, I felt frustrated, right? So now I'm talking about their behavior, how it impacted me emotionally. And what I might want to do is explore, what was your intent with that behavior? Are you aware that it impacted me this way, or that it would impact me this way, right? Before I even hint at what my need moving forward is, I probably need to have some idea of what was going on, what was going through your mind, what's going through my mind. A lot of times when I'm hurt from, if you will, a boundary crossing, I'm reeling from it. I need some time to figure out what just happened. What do I need to do moving forward? What was the intent of the individual? Even if the intent is good, even if their intent was pure and there wasn't any malice to it, doesn't mean that I don't have to create some sort of a need that's communicated, if that makes sense. So then, as I explore that and get a better sense of what need is coming up for me, and keep in mind, you can wait several days, you can wait a week before returning to your partner. You can wait as long as you need to, really, depending on what it is, and say to the other person, here's what's coming up for me, and here's what I think I'm needing, and then placing that on them, if you will, or sharing that with them. But even if you do it in the moment and say, next time what I think I need is this, we have to realize that when we share a boundary with that person, we're trying to future forecast what our actual need in that moment is going to be. And the truth is, that's really hard. I've had people tell me, I always told my partner that if they had another slip with pornography or you name it, that they had to move out of the house. And when that time came, I didn't need that. We've done some really good recovery, and the way that they revealed the slip to me was different, but they come to me in crisis because they'll say to me, I don't need that, but that's what I said I needed 6 months ago, or that's what I said I needed 2 weeks ago. I don't need that today. And they're in like a panic. Oh goodness, I better do it. If I don't do it, then my word doesn't mean anything. If I don't do it, I'm betraying myself. And I'm saying, I encourage them and I challenge them. Go back to your partner and say, hey, I thought that was going to be what I needed. And based on whatever is happening, based on such and such, right? I share that. I'm realizing what I need from you right now is this. And so I present that new need to them. And again, I'm talking about needs because boundaries are an attempt at need fulfillment. And so I think it's much healthier to talk about them in a form of needs. So I go back to my partner and say, hey, here's my need. And I'm trying to figure out if I fully answered your question.
Yes, you did. And thank you for again bringing up boundaries are about need fulfillment. This is the last time we talked about boundaries. This was like the revelation for me.
For you?
Yeah, it really was. So anyway, I have a couple more questions, but I'm going to skip them for now because we've got them coming into the Q&A. Type them into the Q&A and we'll get to as many as we can. The sooner you get them in, the more likely we are to get them. My husband's affair partner has been harassing him and me and our children and friends, sending text, pictures, emails, and calls since I found out about the affair in December of 2020. Any suggestions on how we can navigate through this?
Well,
so we have Glenn Close and Fatal Attraction here.
Oh,
yeah.
So let's, here's the difficulty. How about this? Really, this question, if you think about it, is a question on boundaries, right? Now, even better, if we are to look at it as a question on needs, right? So I see several needs happening here. Affair partner has been harassing him, you, children, friends. Oh my goodness. Any suggestion on how to navigate? My first thought was restraining order. Like, that sounds super scary. So it's one thing in a sense to harass adults, but to harass children? Now, it depends on if your children are adults. I'm not sure of the circumstance here, but even still, no matter what's going on, harassment's not okay, no matter how old you are. Not only is it not okay to do it, it's not okay to have it done to you. So, the first things that pop into my head, okay, do we change phone numbers? Do we move? Do we, have a restraining order? Do we let our friends know that this is an issue? And really just open it up and start talking about it, I think is pretty important, because that's got to be pretty devastating. So those are some of the quick ideas that pop into my head. Obviously, I don't know the circumstances. I don't do legal things, but if it were me, that's kind of all I can throw out there. Or if it were a client, that might be what I would suggest. But obviously, with more detail, we might be able to go a different direction. But I think for me, I'd probably consult an attorney or somebody who knows the law a little better than I do.
Absolutely. Particularly if the affair partner is harassing your children, that is just completely unacceptable.
Yeah, all of it is
every level. All of these things are completely unacceptable. But if you've got like actual kids, that is just.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And let me throw this out there, just so we're clear, in case anybody has any doubt in their mind. People, and I'm not trying to shame anyone here, but people who have affairs with people aren't the most healthy people. And now, does that mean that we don't deserve the opportunity to heal and to change our lives and become healthier people? Of course not. But sadly, if somebody was willing to have an affair with your partner, now maybe they didn't know all the details, maybe they didn't know details, but still, it's like, it's not the healthiest thing in the world and I throw that out with just a touch of sarcasm, because it's really unhealthy, right? But And so unfortunately, sometimes inadvertently, people are invited into our lives without our consent, obviously, if our spouse goes and has an affair. Unhealthy people come into our lives. It's gross.
Yeah, I really feel your pain and urge you to reach out for some professional help, lawyer, police, whatever you need to do to protect yourself and your family. And in addition to changing phone numbers and, maybe shutting down Facebook and whatever you need to do.
Yep.
Next one, I am a betrayed partner. The first boundary I set was asking for a separation 6 months ago. Since then, there have been 6 trips taken by the addict, and he signed up for a half Ironman race. He hasn't joined any 12-step groups or support groups. He does have a regular therapist, but I don't see any real recovery in behavior or attitude. I feel I need to set more boundaries to get his attention, just not sure what yet. Suggestions.
All right, so here's my challenge.
I'm going to ask a question. Is setting boundaries to get his attention? And I think you were just about to address that.
You know what? I smile because I was like, that's the nervousness that I have for you. As a betrayed partner, boundaries aren't about getting attention. Boundaries are about letting your needs be known. And if I am in a relationship and I am consistently not getting my needs met, then ultimately I'm going to eventually, depending on the circumstances, I'm likely going to alter that relationship so that I can get my needs met somewhere else, or I get more realistic about what needs are possible to being met in that relationship. And so I'm not suggesting or even subtly hinting, I'm not doing any of that on what you need. But my nervousness here is that statement you made about setting more boundaries to get his attention. I think you might need to explore more of what your needs are and figure out how to communicate those needs. And eventually he will either figure out how to listen to those needs, keeping in mind him joining a 12-step group, truthfully, may not even meet your need. You may like the idea of him joining a 12-step group. It may provide some level of safety for you because the idea is if he's regularly attending a 12-step group, he's getting healthy connection, he's learning, he's opening up. There's a lot of really good tools that can be learned in the 12-step groups. But virtue of him being in a 12-step group doesn't necessarily provide anything to you other than it's outward evidence that he might be improving. But I've seen people in 12-step groups and in therapy groups and going to regular therapy who I think, wow, you really aren't progressing and providing to your spouse what you need. And you're slightly giggling there, Scott. But my push to you as a betrayed partner is spend as much time as you can really understanding what your needs are. And that's not easy. Especially betrayed partners have a tendency to love so deeply that they often let go of their needs in an attempt to try and help the addicted spouse come to a healthier place. But that doesn't work. So coming back to yourself, focusing on your needs, and then learning to communicate those and see what he does with them over time is really going to be not to get his attention. You're going to know who this person is when you start communicating your needs and you start understanding them yourself, and you watch over time what they choose to do with them. So if over time you continue to try and get healthy and that is not reciprocated in a way, your relationship will likely die and you will have to move forward and do something else. If you see progress, but it's super slow, that might be enough for you to hang on. Unfortunately, obviously, but it's just about what you're able to do there. And so again, boundaries aren't about attention, it's about needs. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, and I was snickering a little bit as you were talking about guys going to 12-step meetings. I've seen guys meet all of these very specific boundaries. I go to 12-step meeting 3 times a week, see a therapist once a week. My cat is playing with my computer. I do, my support group once a week.
Right.
I've seen guys do all of that, and they're just going through the motions as a way of manipulating their partner. Well, I did everything you asked me to do. Why don't you trust me? And it's because the partner still isn't getting the need to trust and the need for honesty and the need for vulnerability met. I'm just literally showing up and telling you I'm here, and I expect you now to start trusting me again. And that just doesn't meet the betrayed partner's need.
Right. Let's actually slow that down a little bit, because what you just said is amazing, right? If we start to think about it, if I, as a betrayed partner, or even I as a partner that's struggling with addiction, if my boundaries are about your behavior, which, keep in mind, that doesn't work, right? But if my boundaries or my needs are about your behavior, I need you to go to 12-step. I need you to go to counseling once a week. I need you to go to a therapeutic support group, right? I need you to go to inpatient, right? If it's about all those things and your partner does those things, and after doing all of those things haven't changed. You're not getting your needs met in the relationship. It causes this, the term I want to use is like moral schizophrenia, right? Like it causes this moral struggle, right, of back and forth, because I'm sitting here going, man, they're doing everything I asked. And so all of my boundaries are being fulfilled, but I still feel empty. It's like asking somebody for food and they bring you popcorn. Well, it's food, but why am I so hungry? Why do I feel so gross? Because you're not getting the nutrition. So if you imagine that your needs is the nutrition and boundaries are the request, right, if you will, you don't want your boundaries to be about their behavior, because they could give you popcorn and all of it looks normal and you eat it and you think, man, I'm still not happy. What's wrong with me? Well, it's because you aren't getting your needs met in the relationship. So we really got to work hard to get the idea out of our head that if I give a list of do's and don'ts, I'll get my needs met and then we'll be happy, because it just doesn't work that way. So I hope that's helpful. You're on mute again, Scott.
Yeah. So the person who asked this question, I'm going to assume it's female, needs to be much more specific about what her needs are as she sets boundaries. I need to feel like you're actually in recovery and in your behavior. I need to feel like I can start trusting you again.
Right.
These things would help me feel that way.
Right. Some of these things might help me feel that way, and I'm hoping you can explore this with me, right? So yes, you going to 12-step lately has felt really good. And more importantly, the things you've come back from 12-step and talked about that you've been learning has helped me feel even more safe. Help me realize that you are gaining awareness and that you want to share it with me. And because as you share your vulnerability with me, I start to feel closer to you. So your effort to go to 12-step was really good, but if you don't take action from that, and if I don't identify what you're actually doing with it that is helping me feel better, then I'm never going to get my needs met. Sorry, I totally took over your comment, Scott.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, I've had, and this is why I'm so sorry I'll never do it again doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you say that, it doesn't work. It's not going to make your betrayed partner feel better.
Well, even if they don't ever do it again, sometimes the betrayed partner feels crazy, right? The betrayed partner feels nuts because, wow, I believe them, they're not doing it again, and my relationship is still terrible. So if you get it stuck in your head that the boundary is what you actually need, you're missing it. The boundary, if you will, is just the guide to try and send somebody in the right direction. And a healthy relationship means that we're working together to figure out mutual need fulfillment.
Yeah, and I think mutual need fulfillment is important. Both parties have needs. Even me as a cheating partner, I have some needs from our relationship. And yes, I'm the one who cheated. And yes, I'm the one who needs to take responsibility and accountability and change my behavior. But I still need to feel loved and appreciated at least once in a while.
No, not just once in a while. Not just once in a while. Let me jump in there, because one of the things that I find is very difficult with people who have struggled with addiction is that they have used shame their whole life to tell themselves that they aren't lovable, that they aren't worthy of love. And oftentimes it's because of trauma that's happened to them, or some type of pain or whatever else is going on in their life. And it is a difficult place, as somebody who teaches them healthy recovery, to go in and say, hey, you're just as worthy of love and need fulfillment as your betrayed partner, right? Because they want to say, well, yeah, but I'm the bad guy who did all of this. And it's like, no, you were an unhealthy person who made poor choices and you damaged the relationship, but your needs are just as important as your betrayed spouse. And the two of you need to understand that. If we don't help people struggling with addiction to get healthy need fulfillment as much as a betrayed partner, we're making the person struggling with the addiction more vulnerable to using the addiction for need fulfillment, which it never did, by the way. And so
talk about popcorn,
Yeah, exactly. It's popcorn, not even buttered. I'm sorry, there's me trying to be funny, but it's like the reality of it is that we should not try to overemphasize need fulfillment for the addicted partner, and we should not try to overemphasize need fulfillment for the betrayed partner. Both have incredible, beautiful, healthy needs that they deserve to have met. Now, it's harder for the addicted partner to figure out what those needs are, usually. And I don't, it's hard, because now I want to pull that statement back. But oftentimes it's difficult because they've used the addiction for so many years to layer after layer again, to bury what their deep needs were. Now, a betrayed partner could be using years of love and caring to suppress their needs and layer their needs as well. But ultimately, need fulfillment for both is critical. Now I'm stepping off my soapbox, ready for you, Scott.
Okay, let's jump to the next one here. I'm a betrayed spouse, 2.5 years out from D-Day. That's discovery. Since then, my psychotic husband has not been able to get more than 90 days of sobriety. He recently told me he's completely stopped all recovery work. We are already separated, and on top of that, he is deployed overseas. So I feel I have limited options for setting new boundaries. What boundaries can I set in this challenging situation?
It is a beautiful question and a painful story. So you're separated. So here's what I hear from your story. Need fulfillment was already very scarce. And so what I say there is, it would almost be, I almost hear you saying, my partner hasn't been able to get sobriety. We are already separated, and it looks like because, if maybe even because of the deployment overseas. And what I would say is, I feel I have limited options for getting my needs met, right? And I would agree. Yeah, it's really hard to be in a relationship and be distant from each other. And so I'm going to change your question. What needs can I get met in this challenging situation? Well, I might go to my spouse in this situation and say, I'm really grateful for your honesty. That helps me understand where you are. I might go and say, help me understand why you've decided to stop all recovery work. Are you feeling hopeless? What does that mean in your mind for the future of our relationship? Right? And so I'm now going with my needs, which are, can you tell me what's going on for you? Can you tell me how you're feeling? How did you get to this place? Let me tell you where I am, how I'm feeling, what I'm hoping for the future, right? Those might be the most need fulfillment that I can get in this situation. And I'm going to have to decide, do I take action now to either terminate the relationship, or meaning if I don't feel like it has the hope of progress moving forward, or do I say, hey, we need to wait until you're back from being deployed overseas and let's get into therapy and see what's going on and see if we can work on this together. I imagine doing addiction recovery being deployed is very difficult. And so my boundary might be that we're going to wait and see, and that I'm going to need for you and me to get into therapy and to work on this as soon as you get back. So I hope you understand that what I'm exploring here is, what are my needs? But because of the limitation of need fulfillment based on your situation, you are correct. You have a difficult time creating, if you will, boundaries to work through that need fulfillment together. Whether it's, hey, can we talk every day? Or it's, hey, I think let's talk once a week. Or if you have kids, I'd really appreciate it if you called the kids every day. I think that would be beneficial for them. Or, right, like, start talking about what the needs are of the relationship and of the family. And that sounds like about as much as you can do. Ask the other person if they can do that and see how they respond.
Yeah, I really feel the pain inherent in that question, because there are so few options. I'm going to go to the chat feature real quick. Matt, what is gaslighting? Why do cheating partners gaslight their spouses? And when can spouses realistically expect that to stop? And what can they do if it continues? That's a big, broad question for you.
Yeah, no kidding. So gaslighting. I'll just try and give a quick gaslighting. I've never seen the movie. I think it was a movie in the 50s with Angela Lansbury, if I remember right. I could be wrong there. And in the movie, I guess there were gas lamps or gas lights.
Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer, and he's her new husband. And yes, they have gas lights in the house. And he's only married her because he wants to steal her family jewels. So whenever he's up in the attic, he has to turn the lights on up there, and he's foraging around for the jewels. And then she comments on, why do the lights keep dimming? And he tells her they're not, and it's all in her head. And he basically makes her insane.
Right.
So that's gaslighting. So denying someone's reality.
Right. Trying to tell somebody else that their reality is wrong. Now, interestingly enough, I see this occur inadvertently all the time. Now, why I say that is, in that movie, he may have been trying to make her go crazy in an attempt to steal the family jewels, right? Okay, so you just told me way more about the movie than I've ever known. But
old movie buff, sorry.
Really?
I love old movies. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool. I'll have to check that one out. But long story short, I've seen in relationships, this can happen between friends, right? If I were to go to Scott and say, hey, Scott, I tried calling you or sending you a text message or both, and you're not replying. And Scott says to me, I haven't seen any text messages from you. You haven't called me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Scott, I totally called you. I left a message, right? And he's saying to me, no, I would have seen it. I would have responded back. I'm suddenly going, oh my gosh, am I crazy? Do I have the wrong phone number? What's happening here? And inadvertently, Scott's defending himself. And so he is telling me that my reality is wrong in an effort to, because he's probably feeling attacked by me. And so, most frequently in relationships, I see gaslighting occur because one person is going to the other person, and usually instead of me saying, Scott, I've been reaching out to you and I haven't heard back from you, and that makes me scared because I miss you. And Scott's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you feel scared. I miss you too. Like, how come we're not connecting? Well, I was calling you and I didn't get a call back. And Scott's like, really? Man, let me check my phone. If you've been calling me, no wonder why you're missing me. And he looks, and maybe he checks his spam filter. He's like, I don't know why your calls are going to spam, right? And well, Oma, that sounds terrible, man. And so we connect and we understand why our realities are a little bit different here, and we understand and we validate each other in those realities. Okay, this typically is why gaslighting is occurring in relationships. It's not a conniving individual who's trying to make the person feel crazy. Now, you in an addiction relationship, even in that situation, I've seen a lot of people who struggle with addiction who will lie because they're so scared of getting caught. They are trying to throw the scent off their trail, and inadvertently they make their spouse feel crazy. And a lot of times I've actually had them tell me they feel terrible about it, but they were so worried that if they told the truth, their spouse would leave them. And so they sacrificed their spouse's sanity in order to not lose the relationship, which is a terrible choice. So we're clear, it's awful. And so this is how gaslighting typically occurs, but it's also why, as a betrayed partner, if I go to my spouse and I say, you're gaslighting me, typically what they hear is, you're manipulating me on purpose to make me feel crazy. And then they're like, no, I'm not, which makes us feel gaslighted, right? What we would be better off saying is, hey, right now, what you're saying makes me feel like you're telling me that my reality is untrue. And if they say, yes, it feels like your reality isn't true because you're telling me I'm lying to you, and I feel like I'm telling you the truth, right? So of course, and now if they were super healthy, they would say, of course you feel gaslighted because I feel attacked and I'm challenging your reality because it seems different than mine. Can we talk about it to understand why we are both going through this, right? Takes a lot of therapy to be able to do this, but that would be where most gaslighting occurs in a relationship. And I think we're better off checking in gaslighting by telling the other person, I'm feeling like you're questioning my reality. Is that what you're trying to do? Are you trying to tell me I'm wrong? Because that makes me feel like either I can't trust myself or that you're lying to me or whatever. Now I got to go and see if I answered the whole question.
Well, let me read the comment to you here that we just got. This seems like you're exonerating the addict to some degree. If the partner had only been more relational, this reality manipulation wouldn't happen. That's what wouldn't happen. I can assure you Matt is not trying to do that. He's just giving you what healthy people would do. But healthy people tend to not gaslight, whereas addicts
no, yeah, exactly. The moment a healthy person realizes that the other person feels crazy, they're quick to go, oh, hold on, what's happening? You're not crazy here. I'm trying to explain where I'm coming from, but you make sense to me. I guess I'm confused why it says I'm exonerating the addict. I would be curious what I said that would sound like that, because in my mind, the person struggling with addiction needs to learn how their behavior is affecting the other person. Whether their intent is trying to make the person feel crazy or not, the effect is the same. So there's no exoneration. And if you're suggesting that I'm exonerating them because I'm examining their intent and not putting ill intent to them, That would be intriguing. I mean, I guess I could see that. That would make sense why it would feel that way. What I'm trying to show is that I think most of the time it's inadvertent, but just because it's inadvertent doesn't mean it's not just as damaging. If it's inadvertent, though, it gives me as a clinician a little bit more of an opportunity to say, hey, let's go in here and show why this is happening. Not, now, if they're doing it on purpose, now I've got to explore, why are you doing this? Are you just an awful person? Which I tend not to think that people are awful, right? Like, I'm trying to go in and figure out, you've developed this unhealthy behavior for a reason. Let's figure out how to go back and change this unhealthy behavior so that your spouse doesn't feel crazy. So
how does gaslight to protect the addiction? The addiction, one of the sad things about addiction is it becomes more important than my relationships. At least it did for me. And I would lie and cover up and manipulate, and not because I was a bad person, but because the most important thing in my life was my addiction. And breaking that habit, it took a lot of time and a lot of effort. Yeah. And even when I knew I was lying, I lied.
Yeah,
to protect my addiction. Not because I hated you or wanted you to feel crazy. I lied to protect my addiction.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing because there's no excuse for the behavior in the sense that nothing makes that behavior okay. It will always damage the relationship, whether it's intentional, whether it's unintentional. There is literally no excuse for it. However, we can try to dig in to understand, why is this occurring? When is it occurring? How can we change it the best we can moving forward over time? And the problem is, you're not going to just change it because you become aware of it. Too much in our lives is instinctual. Too much in our lives is reactionary. And there's a reason for that. There's too much information for all of us to process in order to make every choice we do conscious. Now, again, am I excusing behavior? Absolutely not. But it's a slow process to go back through and figure out why these things are occurring, what measures we need to take to change them, and then let those changes take effect, and to call them out and become more aware of it. I mean, the truth is, I don't know about you guys, my awareness for my unhealthy behavior is growing all the time. I'm still screwing things up and making mistakes and saying stupid stuff. I can't tell you guys how many times I'm riding my bike and a thought pops into my head of something I said a year ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that to a client or to a friend. It doesn't even matter, right? And I'm like, oh, and so it takes all of us the rest of our lives to become healthier and healthier, with a lot of intention and a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure. I took us down the rabbit hole there with gaslighting. Sorry. Let's take this question here. Thoughts about some appropriate boundaries 20 months post D-Day. The addict has been sexually sober, but still doesn't seem to have a true recovery program. He recently started therapy, but has broken his agreement to attend 12-step groups. He believes he's doing well, so a formal program isn't necessary. In the interim, he's picked up a work addiction and has gotten more resentful and accusatory lately. I'm feeling more and more alienated and scared about how this will play out, and have told him so. And then it continues, what can I do beyond voicing my ongoing concerns and distress?
Well, I would say continue to voice your ongoing concerns and distress. I would talk more about the behavior that you're seeing and the judgments you're making about the behavior. So I'm seeing that you're no longer going to 12 steps. That makes me scared and nervous, because my hope is, when you're in a formal program, there's more structure. Now, you may not know this, but I think it's Carnes rule number 7. he says that an addict will fail to maintain sobriety if there is inadequate structure. So you have inadequate structure, maintained secrets, and insufficient first step, which is recognizing that you're powerless and that you can't do this on your own. You need God, you need others in your life, because you're powerless. So I would mention that when I see you have a more formal structure in your life and not be so overtaken by your work, that work becomes your new structure. And I don't see a healthy structure with work-life balance, 12-step recovery balance, family outings and activities, weekly, some type of a regular date between the two of us. When I'm not seeing this structure, I start to get scared that your recovery isn't going to last. Or I start to get scared that we're really just transferring your addiction to something else, like a work addiction. And a work addiction has some payouts, literally, right? Usually the more we work, the more we get paid, or the more we work, the more we get promoted and the more we get paid, right? So and so I would talk about your fears around all of that, and how you would like to see these things, these behaviors of his happen, again, because it provides you a sense of safety. But ultimately, if he doesn't learn to get more vulnerable with you, if he doesn't learn to lean into your pain and your hurts, if he doesn't learn to take care of himself in healthy ways, your needs aren't getting met because you're scared that you're going to lose it all. Now, again, you have to decide what are your needs there, and is he willing and able to try and fulfill them? Let's see. You said something on consequences beyond expressing. So expressing your ongoing concerns and distress, consequences beyond expressing. So here's the hard part. What are the consequences? The most important thing you need to consider is, what are my needs? And when my needs don't get met, what actions do I need to take in order to take care of myself? Your consequences, if you will, are what behaviors do I need to do to take care of myself, not what behaviors do I need to do so that he gets a consequence. At that point, you become his mother or his father. I think you're a female, but and I'm thinking it's a he. I think I'm trying to do all the whole gender thing here because I never know. But but ultimately, you don't want to become his parent by enacting consequences to behavior you don't like, right? You want to take typically consequences to his behavior that are about you getting your needs met because he's injuring you, right? If I'm driving and somebody comes up and waves a gun at me from another car, the consequence is I'm going to slam on my brakes, or I'm going to speed up, or I'm going to slam on my brakes and call the cops. I'm doing all of that because of what my needs are, not because I'm thinking I need to teach this person a lesson. I don't need to teach this person a lesson. They're waving a gun at me. They're going to figure out life lessons their own crazy ways. I need to take care of myself. So how's that, Scott?
That's a good example. I want to get to this last question here because it comes from something we brought up earlier. It says, my partner has shown great commitment to recovery, and I do see real improvement in empathy. Hooray. Earlier you mentioned the addict has needs too. What can I do to satisfy those emotional needs, even though I am still so hurt? I think this is a wonderful question.
Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful question. First of all, I think it's really awesome that you recognize that your partner has needs and that you have needs. And the truth is, you're both hurting. Even if it's him or her, whoever it is, hurting, that they hurt you. they're hurting, even if it's them or you hurting from wounds that are there long before your relationship ever started. We all have hurts. So the question is, how do we start talking about those hurts together? Now, the difficulty we have is if you are going to make attempts to satisfy your partner's needs, you need to be aware that you are going to make a gracious attempt at satisfying the needs, knowing you might not actually satisfy them. And that's okay, because the intent or the attempt to satisfy the need in this case is really the important part. I'm going to make an attempt because I love and care about you, and I'm hoping this helps. And if we find out it doesn't, oh, okay, well, let's learn more. The truth is, most of us, you, your partner who's an addict, doesn't know their needs very well. So need fulfillment among us partners in that relationship, I think it's difficult for healthy people to know their needs. And so let's work together to try and fulfill each other's needs, but let's give up the idea that we can become mind readers, that even if I do fulfill needs, that means you're never going to hurt me again, right? Let's lose the faulty core belief that if I fulfill your needs, which maybe I try and do that, I'm going to try and fulfill your needs so that I can guarantee you never hurt me again. Well, that's not true. And in fact, that's really unhealthy. I'm going to fulfill your needs because I'm going to attempt to anyway, because I love and care about you. And if that helps you in your life, great. If it doesn't, let's learn together. So hopefully this helps a little bit with that. And even though I wasn't specific, I actually really love this question. If you wanted more specific things, we can dive into that next webinar for sure.
Yeah, I really think this last question, I mean, you almost have to go back to, what did we do to express our love to each other in the very beginning before all this hurt? How did you express to me that you love me, and how, there's the love languages from somebody whose name
it's John Gray, I think. No,
somebody.
I can't remember.
But anyway, what's your love language with each other? So
and I guess sorry, there was another piece you just threw out there that piqued my interest. What did we do in the beginning? But I mean, I can think to times where I would work really hard to get a gift for my wife, and I realized later that in working really hard to get a very thoughtful gift, I was hoping for an outcome. And it's that hoping for an outcome that would leave me feeling my shame. It would leave me feeling let down, and it would leave my wife with this pressure that she had to give me a response so that I didn't feel bad. Well, that's gross, right? I created this really unhealthy dynamic because instead of, hey, I'm going to do my best to get a gift, and I hope that she enjoys it. And if she's disappointed, okay, I'll learn. That's good to know. But I'm a healthy individual for trying to do something good. And the truth is, if she's upset at me, that sounds like her unhealthiness that she needs to work through. If she's sweet about it and says, hey, I really didn't want this, but I'm so grateful you were thoughtful. That shows me how much you love me. Let's return it. And I think I know what I do want. Can we go get that together? Sure. Right? That's what need fulfillment looks like. It's this weird exploration that occurs for both of us in a relationship. Now I'm way over time.
I'm picturing the year my father bought my mother a vacuum cleaner for her birthday. It did not go over well. So, thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will be back in 2 weeks. Bring your questions with you, and we'll get through as many as we can. I'll get this posted on our YouTube channel and our website probably later today if I can. So if you want to revisit this, you'll have that opportunity. Anything you want to say to take us out, Matt?
No, I was actually just typing in here. I'll say I was going to type in there, great questions. I always love what you guys bring. I'm going to keep bringing the energy, but you guys are fantastic. Keep the recovery work going. This is not easy, but whether you no matter what happens, let's all stay in recovery because it's much healthier there. It's happier there. So see you guys later.
Good night all. Have a good weekend.